Hello, this is Matt Singer. I am the Arts and Culture Editor at Willamette Week, and today I am speaking with longtime Portland singer-songwriter Kasey Anderson. Kasey, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Good to see you.
Of course, nice to see you. So before we kind of get into more specific reasons why we're talking, we kind of try to start these by asking our guests sort of what they have been doing in quarantine and how they've been holding up. So how has social isolation been treating you?
It's been okay. My wife and I get along very well, so that's a bonus. Like, it's been nice to spend a little extra time together. And I think I have always kind of assumed that I was an antisocial guy. I mean, like being a performer, you're out around people or whatever, but I always kind of complained about obligations and group things. I didn't realize how much I was going to miss it, and how after the first couple, I feel like everybody the first couple weeks was like, oh, let's jump on the Zoom call. Let's do a group Zoom call. And then that faded really quickly when you realize how little there is to talk about unless you're actually in the same room with each other. So we've been hanging in. Like, I think like anybody else, we just have been trying to be as careful as we can. We go and see my mom, who lives nearby, twice a week, but that's really our only socialization.
Have you been particularly, creative during this period, or is it having the opposite effect?
It is having the opposite effect. And I am currently enrolled in a program to get my MFA. And so it has been detrimental to my work in that program. I just feel like, I don't know, I definitely don't want to write about what's happening right now. And then I think there just is like a malaise that everybody feels, where you get to, like, in the morning, you can kind of do your morning thing and you have things to occupy you, and you can like make coffee or make breakfast or, get online and check things out. And then when the middle of the day hits, I just feel absolutely no motivation to do anything beyond contemplate my own lack of motivation. So I haven't.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, the one thing that has been maybe not so much to the delight of my wife is I got like way deep back into Pearl Jam. And so I was like, okay, I used to know how to play all these songs. I used to know how to play all of these songs, all the solos. I'm going to learn them all again. And so at first she was like, that's cool. Pearl Jam's all right. I'll listen to Pearl Jam. And now that we're into like month 4 of me trying to learn the Alive solo, it's not as charming as it was.
So I wanted to talk to you about this kind of like unexpected success of a song from your last record.
Yeah.
So maybe just kind of recap what exactly has been transpiring in the last couple of weeks with that.
So there is a company called 11 Films based here in Portland, Oregon. And they make these, I guess they're ads, you could call them ads, sort of like calls to action for people to vote, or to be socially active in some way. They are a left-leaning organization, which aligns, they're maybe still a little bit to the right of my politics, but they're a left-leaning organization. And they're good people. And I knew them a little bit before, and I knew the work that they did, but I was not super familiar with the reach that kind of activism has. Like, I didn't really understand the magnitude to which those videos get shared. And so a few weeks ago, Tiffany, who works at 11 Films, reached out and just said, I heard this acoustic performance of the song Dangerous Ones. Do you have access to that file? And if so, can I use it in a film that we're making? And so I asked her a little bit more about the company and, like where the money comes from, where it goes. And they seemed like good people. So I said, sure, go ahead and use the song. And then the video is now at like 8 million views. It's been shared by an enormous amount of people who have a much greater reach than I do on Twitter.
Many people know your story. You did a few years in prison. You've been out. You've mostly been trying to focus on sort of, paying back a little bit of the damage that you did back when you were, in a worse place in your life. And we've talked a bunch. I've written about you, and it's been, a big kind of your narrative has been, you kind of have been, you were resigned to not putting out another record. You kind of accidentally put out another record almost. So I mean, what does this kind of mean for you or to you? I mean, I assume it means something a lot different than it would to like a young, kind of rising artist who's trying to get their music out there?
Yeah, I don't really have a publicist anymore. I mean, I have my friend Alex has managed me for most of the time since I've been out of prison, but we haven't been, I haven't been working. Like I've been working on a new record, which I had said this will be my last record and I'm just going to release it and walk away. I'm not going to tour behind it. I just had these 10 songs and was excited to work with the band on the record, who are like Kasey Neal, Jenny Conley, Kylene King, Andrew McCaig, some folks who have worked on my old records. And now I've got an inbox full of emails from managers and booking agents, and I've had to kind of say like, hey, this is really cool and really flattering, but I have a full-time job. I work in a profession that I'm passionate about, and I don't, like, my goals have not changed. My ambition is not to figure out a way to be on the road 200 days a year. My wife is pregnant. We're going to have our first kid. My ambition is not to do anything more than it was a week ago before this happened.
Can you tell me a little bit about the song itself? Because I think it's probably being used in a slightly different context than maybe you initially intended.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so. The video is very moving, and I really appreciate the work that they do. And I like the video very much, and I like their other videos that I've seen. And the song is in a sense encouraging people to vote or to be active in the ways that they can be active. But I think, and I don't think this is in the intent of the filmmakers. I think it just is sort of the way that people see the world. Like, I think the song is being perceived as saying that the only bad guys, quote unquote bad guys, or the chorus mentions like the white boys with money, that the song is specifically referencing Trump, Mitch McConnell, and Lindsey Graham, those people of the world. And it is, I mean, those are villainous, dangerous people, but there are a lot of white boys with money on the other side of the aisle too, who have caused their fair share of problems for people who don't have money and for people who faced violence and injustice. So if the song moves people to vote and that's the beginning of their action, then that's great. But the song was kind of written to attack, you have seen this too. We live in a place where it seems like, and I will say that since this is a very Portland-centric publication and site, I love the city very much and I love the people here very much, but I think that there are a lot of people, especially here in Portland, whose memory and whose grasp of history is maybe not what it could be to contextualize what's happening. I think it's very easy for people in Portland to forget or ignore how the state and how the city started and the history of racism that runs through Oregon and Portland. And to just feel comfortable with their level of activism being like, well, I'm not a Republican. And I kind of don't think that's enough anymore.
So as you said, you're not trying to like use this as a springboard to, kind of a springboard toward a career resurgence, but you are planning on putting out another record. Is that correct?
Yeah. And that was my plan. I mean, I had a handful of songs that I really liked that I wrote after the last record came out. And sort of the centerpiece is this song that's based on a poem by Hanif Abdurraqib, who is one of my favorite writers. And so that in itself, just that the existence of that song was enough for me to think, well, I want to try and build a record around this. And like I said, my plan was just, okay, well, we'll record these 10 songs, and eventually, now that my income is relatively stable, I'll be able to afford to put it out. So the record will come out whenever that is, and I wasn't on a timeline. I'm still not really on a timeline. And that was kind of going to be the end of it, and may still be. I mean, I don't really know. We'll see what happens, but my intent is still just to release that record and kind of be done with that part of my life, at least as much as I was before.